What's up, old school metal vinyl fanboys? Welcome back to the channel. A new episode, and this time not dedicated to vinyl for once, but to a small thing from the underground, a product of its own age, which probably doesn't exist anymore these days, at least not in the form we used to know it. Called the fanzines. Now, if you happen to be an old fart just like myself, meaning someone was born in between 1970 and 1975, you most definitely remember these small publications. They were what the name says, magazines done by fans with all their pros and cons. The pros was that they were done by truly dedicated fans of the music, like whoever put out a fanzine back in the day, you can tell he was a 100% dedicated metal maniac, because trust me, these things didn't pay off. You had to invest a lot of time doing them, a lot of money printing them or xeroxing them. Most of the times it was just a Xerox, the stuff that was around, and at the end of the day, there wasn't really much money left in your pockets if you are a fanzine editor. How do I know that? Let's say first-hand experience. So, where to start from? Now, the golden age of fanzines was basically starting in the mid 80s and lasted for like the following decade, something like 10 years, I would say, probably even earlier than that. The very first ones came out in, I don't know, 1982, 1983, in terms of metal related, of course, publications. And I gotta say that quality was kind of like debatable most of the times. And I will start off showing some of these mags from my collection, which I recently sold. I had a collection of about 100 of them, and decided to sell them just like the rest of my collection. And one of the cheapest ones in terms of like printing quality was definitely Forest Oven Guy, which is a small thing published by Marco De Plano, some Italian dude who was later involved with, if I believe, Death in June, might be mistaken. You get the style of these things, like there were Xeroxed, very, very poorly, let's say, put together in terms of layout, kept together by staples, which of course with didn't really, stand the test of time. But that was the approach back then, and you can tell, the guy put an insane amount of effort in this thing, because the interviews themselves are pretty well done. Not really sure what kind of printer he used, must have been some really primitive thing. Thou Shalt Suffer, Cathedral, Rotting Christ, all those bands which nowadays are pretty popular. I wouldn't say it's, of course, just because of Forrest Guy, but you gotta give these mags, these fanzines, some credit, because a lot of the bands which later became very popular, they were put on the map through these publications. Mind you, those were times when there was no internet and certainly no Spotify around, so the only chance you had to get in touch with other dedicated metalheads or to just get to know new bands was through fanzines like this. Like, you would read this, interview with this new band called Emperor, send them a letter, get a demo tape in reply if you were lucky enough that the tape didn't get lost in the post. And that's how the underground worked at that time. So yeah, a lot of the bands which are popular nowadays, they I think owe a depth of gratitude to these publications. This is an example of a Xerox the mag. Another one was Necrotomy magazine, which I believe this is the third issue, was released by the guys from Wounded Love Records, from Valerio, by Valerio from Wounded Love Records, who later became part of Avant-Garde Music, which is still going on these days. Props to the guys. Again, you can tell Xerox the magazine, lots of demo reviews, lots of interviews with bands, which later would become pretty well known. I believe I actually got in touch with Black Crucifixion and got their demo tape just through this mag. I might be mistaken, but I really think so. And what else? I think there was even a Helvet. Yeah, there was a Helvet advert in the second page. Again, not really a magazine that shines in terms of quality. You can tell the printing. This was not even printed. This is just Xeroxed. But the attitude was there, you know. So props to the guys for kicking around for so long. Third Evil means they put out at least, I think there was a fourth issue which I sold some ages ago. Pure fucking hell was somehow better. It was released by the guy who was behind that stupid Nazi band called Diaboli. Which I don't really want to review too much. You can tell, you know, that the poor quality of this interview with Hungarian Tormentor, for instance. I'm sure they probably must have printed with like a regular typewriter, I would say, and then Xerox then put together just like that. This was probably pressed on a, like, it's not a Xerox, but still, you know, content is kind of naive, I would say. One of the things that I didn't necessarily like about these publications was that most of the questions were just very, very basic, like, how is it going on there to Enslaved? Your Hordanes Land mini LP has just been released. Of course, there was also this poor English thing. Most of them were, written in very broken English, but, they were a product of its time, and just like that, you have to accept it. Some Euronymous cringe worship in here. Yeah, I gotta say, a lot of this stuff was very, very cringe, but again, what do you expect? The age of, like, these were put out by guys in, I don't know, their teens at best, because bear in mind, most zines were done by people who were like very, very young, naive, and I mean, would expect really like and normally, if you do a 9 to 5 job, there is just no way. If you did a 9 to 5 job, there was no way you could have come up with zines like that. Of course, exceptions exist, but most of these, I'm fairly sure, they were done by unemployed people or just people who had a truckload of times from school or whatever. And as a result, a lot of this stuff is kind of naive, but I guess it adds to its charm. A really big thing was Fallen Pages issue 3. Now, this achieved the cult status among the fanzine lovers because it included some of the most popular bands from those days, namely Beherit, Sarcophago, there was, God Dethroned, but Impale Nazarene, Samael, and I believe there is a Master's Hammer interview as well. This is probably Mika from Impale Nazarene. If memory serves me well, this magazine was edited by, the editor was the guy from, there's even an Abruptum interview, interestingly enough. The editor of this guy was Timo from Black Crucifixion, if memory serves me well. This was a pretty huge thing. It sold out. I managed to lay my hands on a couple of copies, dead stock from back in the day, which is why this copy is in such pristine condition. Another very popular zine, which is still around these days as a web zine, was Voices from the Dark Side, which actually started off in a different format, just like many of the publications from those days. This was an A3, which they kept until issue 3, I believe. And this is issue 5, number 5, and as you can tell, this is considerably better printed. This is, like tons and tons of reviews and interviews with bands. This was one of my favorite publications next to Slayer magazine, which of course all know, because I really love the attitude of editor Frank Stover, who used to be the very first manager of Destruction. He's still around these days, still into metal, which deserves some respect. Really, really props to The guy also had a really nice approach to things in terms of politics, so props to the guy. The very first issue, I was very impressed to, check it out. I kind of forgot what was inside, and somehow the dude managed to get an interview with, I believe, Morbid Angel out of all bands. Like, imagine, getting interviews from these bands was deadly difficult back in the day, because most of the times you would just send out letters which were left unanswered by the guys. Not just talking about Morbid Angel, but generally speaking, because guess what? Maybe your fey bands were too busy rock stars to give two shits about your letter. Whatever the reason, he must have had some pretty good connections with the guys, because it was incredibly hard to get interviews with these bands. There's even White Zombie. Did I see it correctly? Is it White Zombie being interviewed? Yeah, White Zombie. Wow, this is impressive, actually. Very, very impressive. So yeah, props to Voices from the Dark Side. Check out their website. It's still a very, very reliable source of info. Slayer magazine, I mentioned it before. This is probably my all-time favorite zine. They've been around since the very early days. The guy Metallion had a very nice sense of humor. They are no longer publishing new issues. I think the guy went through some pretty heavy health issues. All my luck to him, but all 20 issues, actually 19 of them, because number 12 doesn't exist, but all 19 issues he made are just legendary pieces of metal journalism. This was, of course, in a much better league in terms of printing quality, as you can tell, especially the later issues. The early ones were Xeroxed, I believe, and they are now incredibly hard to find and then sell for heaps of money. But yeah, I mean, his taste in music, absolutely killer. He even had some, I don't remember, was it on issue number 16? He had some, like a couple of remarks against the National Socialist black metal, which adds, which on my side, says a lot. It's very, very much appreciated when the editor of such a popular magazine as Slayer takes a stance against it. Last but certainly not least, the Holocaust Records was publication edited by the manager of, the guy behind Pagan Records, which was a pretty small underground Polish label, which has the merit, if you want to call it so, to have put Behemoth on the map. Now, I don't know if you're a Behemoth fanboy, but I certainly am not. I didn't really. Yeah, there's an interview with them actually. This might as well be the very first Behemoth interview ever. Never in my wildest dreams would I thought this would have become like the leading metal band of today, or at least one of the strongest, most best-selling, at least, bands of today. Never really liked them in terms of music, neither when they were playing this Norwegian black metal ripoff, nor nowadays Beherit. So you get a point. It's these were meant to be, your introduction to the underground, a way to get in touch with new bands in times when the internet was just not common at all. This is another issue from the same Holocaust magazine. The logo is the same. It was just printed in a smaller format. Really, really cool magazine. Now, the girl, as I said in the beginning of the video, the golden age of zines, fanzines, lasted from, let's say, the early 80s all the way to mid 90s, which is when magazines took off. You had these things like, for instance, Nordic Vision, which took things to a radically different dimension in terms of printing quality, in terms of the very same quality of the interviews, which were not focused on generic naive questions anymore. I remember at the very beginning when this mag came out, there was a lot of confusion, because there was a lot of, at least, a lot of people thought it was edited by the guys from Moonfog Productions, or at least they got some funds, or was it financed by Moonfog Productions, whatever, because they tended to feature Moonfog bands almost exclusively. Like in this first one, there is Darktron. There is a lot of space given to Darktron. You can tell Storm. There's okay, Gorgor was not part of Moonfog back then, but yeah, they did give some a lot of room to bands from that specific label. Turns out it was nothing like that. It was just an independent publication. Issue 4 was even better. Issue 5 was when things started really getting big for them, with Morbid Angel at the gates, who had just released their Slaughter of the Soul album. Bathory even, they managed to get an interview with them. So yeah, from now on, with Nordic Vision, I would say this is like it signs as kind of a break between the old world of, zines released by dedicated metal maniacs in the loneliness of their bedroom with, I don't know, 286 PC and a shitty printer, as compared to the more professional mags of today, which are still being published. Things like, I don't know, Ablaze. Well, not sure if Ablaze is still around, but you get a point. Nowadays, you get black metal, death metal covered in pretty much every mainstream magazine around. 30 years ago, it was not like that. You had to struggle to get your piece of metal journalism, and that was pretty much what it was. Tape trading was also a common habit back in the day. That's how you managed to get new music. Unlike others, I wouldn't say it was necessarily a better era, because a lot of times you ended up, losing money on, demos which you paid for and somehow never popped out of your mailbox. Lots of rip-offs in the scenes. Mind you, there was no PayPal, of course, so you couldn't really try your way with a cashback, but that's part of the charm of that era, which is now long and forgotten by many, but not by this channel. Speaking of which, I still have quite a lot of zines left for sale. Everything you have seen in this video has been sold, so don't ask for it, but I still have a couple of issues from Putrefaction zine, which was the one that Thomas from No Fashion Records put out, as well as pretty much all Slayer magazines from issue 11 up to 20. Just feel free to get in touch, drop me a line. As usual, I recommend you to do so via email, oldschoolmetalvinyl@yahoo.com. You can also try your luck on Instagram if your message is not mistaken for spam. But yeah, if you're looking for zines and if I have them, I'll be free to sell them for incredibly inflated prices. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this slightly different episode. Let me know back down in the comments if you were fanzine fanatic just like myself, if you used to collect them, if you still collect them these days. Let me know what are your experiences with these primordial pieces of metal journalism. Until the next time, keep it loud and heavy as always.